quite start a race like this. It's a lovely tropical story.
The guys did a fantastic job. It's good to be first.
Welcome to Abu Dhabi and the start of leg 3 of the Volvo Ocean Race. For the last 2 editions of this round-the-world race, Abu Dhabi has been a welcoming host to the sailors, the race staff and the spectators. The fleet has sailed around 12,000 nautical miles over 2 legs to reach the capital of the UAE. Few cities can match Abu Dhabi's splendor and history, and over the years it has become a showcase of Arabian culture and hospitality. And now with their very own team competing, the city has shown its full support. All of this has made Abu Dhabi a very memorable stopover and a very unique experience for everyone. Today is the day to say goodbye to the warm weather and cheering crowds before heading out to the water, and racing begins for the final time in front of the city's endless beaches. Once the last-minute preparations and checks were completed by all the sailors and shore teams, nervous excitement took hold as the race beckoned. Yesterday, Team SCA skipper Sam Davies gave multiple Olympian Carolyn Brower the driving seat, and they showed just what their team was capable of, convincingly winning the import race. Departure day at the start of a long ocean leg is always a day of mixed emotions, and as the sailors walked down to the dock earlier, there was a family feel to the moment, with the final goodbyes and a month of sea coming into ever sharper focus. After greeting the crews on the dockside, Sultan Al Dahari performed the handover to Mr. Deng Zhong, the vice mayor of the next stopover, Sanya. Team SCA's women's team was setting off with a new energy despite leaving the injured Sophie Cizek ashore. Team Mafre walked down the dock with a new skipper for the leg, Xavi Fernandez, knowing that he is leading a team that needs to find a rhythm after 2 difficult legs. A show of solidarity, the Spanish team were flying the flag for the missing Team Vestas, whose crew were temporarily spectators after their leg 2 shipwreck. Alongside Mafre, the young Alva Medica are hoping their experienced navigator, Will Oxley, will find the fastest route through the challenging leg, while the top boats on the podium were hoping that those challenges don't trip them up. Dongfeng have a new Chinese sailor on board, and Abu Dhabi left their home port with Abu Dhabi sailor Adil Khalid as the centre of attention, while Brunel go out to sea on top of the leaderboard. I'm joined by Mark Cavell. Mark, you've done this leg before. Talk us through it.
Well, it's going to be light air out the Gulf of Oman, round Sri Lanka and into the notorious Malacca Straits, and then up into the China Sea and to Sanya.
Let's have a look at the scoreboard after 2 offshore legs. 3 teams occupy the top slots, all square on 4 points. Team Brunel, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing and Dongfeng Race Team. Behind them, Team Alva Medica, Mafre and Team SCA are all even with 3 points only holding them apart. At the back, a Team Vestas Wind, who've had some big obstacles to overcome after running aground on leg 2. Let's take a little look at their story.
The timeline we're playing with right now is obviously we're trying to get out of here tonight. We know it's 24 hours to, at bare minimum, to get out to the reef.
hopefully if we can get enough of the boat off, it will make a difference if we can get back in the race or not. There can be a better outcome out of it than just removing everything. So fingers crossed. We made some pretty big statements early on saying that we'd come back and clean up the reef, and none of the locals expect us to be back because no one comes back here to clean up. It's too remote, it's too harsh, and it's too difficult. And you know, I'm really proud that we've done what we said and we've come back and cleaned it up.
To get back into the race is going to be a very, very complicated process because repairing a Volvo Ocean Race boat is not an easy task, and the race is running and you need to get it ready in time for at least a couple of legs before we hit Gothenburg. But our ambition is now, based on the information that we have received, not least from after we removed the boat from the reef and the boat was in a much better condition than we expected, that we can have the boat ready at least for Lisbon in May 2015 and thereby participating the last two legs of this edition of Volvo Ocean Race.
Well, let's take a closer look at the skippers who are going to be out on the water racing today.
Charles Caudrelier from France, big leg for Dongfeng, racing back to China. 2 seconds so far. Can they upgrade to first into their home port of Sanya?
Sam Davies, a renowned single-handed yachtswoman. She's assembled a crew of multiple round-the-world and Olympic sailors, but they've yet to find their top form.
Bao Beking setting off to China with no changes. First overall and looking to keep it that way.
Charlie Enright, the youngest skipper in the field at 30 years of age, but the American skipper has built a solid team who can boast 4 previous Volvo campaigns between them.
Ian Walker leaving a very busy port stopover for them. They lost Phil Harmer through injury, but gained the experience of Neil McDonald.
Chris Nicholson, their shipwreck forcing them to watch the racing today, but the team has plans to rebuild their boat and return to this Volvo Ocean Race edition, something few thought possible.
Iker Martinez, incredibly talented sailor with his teammate with 2 gold medals, with Xavi Fandanez now taking on the skippership. This is his time to shine.
Well, that's the skipper lineup. Those are the sailors you're going to see out on the water, but let's take a look at how this 4,600 mile course begins. The start line just off the city of Abu Dhabi, and it will be a fetch upwind to the first mark, back down towards the starting area, once more upwind. This should be an upwind beat, depending on the wind angle, then a reach across the top of the course to the western edge, back down once more to the starting area, through the leaving gate, and then out on their way to Sanya. Well, there is the image at the moment of the action. I mean, this is it's a very unusual weather system we're seeing. Visibility really down. Quite hard for the race officers to set a course and very hard for the sailors to just work out what's happening.
Now, over the last few days, we've actually woken up to fog, and the sun has burnt that off by this time. So, you know, it's really quite cold. I mean, the conditions, 14 degrees, quite cold. And here you can see the sun from above the cloud, a lovely day above the cloud. And we just need the sun to burn that fog off. We will be starting on time.
Well, 15 seconds to go for the start of leg 3. Thick fog engulfing the start line, but all the crews on their way to begin the race to China. Team SEA on starboard going over the top of the fleet. Everybody else electing to start on port tack. And that's the start gun fired. It's a soft start. It's quite gentle, not as aggressive as some of the previous starts that we've seen. Team SEA looking quite nicely off the line. Knut Frostad, the Volvo Ocean Race CEO, you're on the water. How did that start look?
Well, I mean, it was hardly possible to see what it looked like because the fog is so tight here, and it actually got tighter and thicker just before the start. Very slow, easy start. I mean, the tricky thing for the guys, I hope they have a good sort of picture of the next mark, because you wouldn't be able to see it. And SCA got off well. I mean, it's difficult to say whether the right or left is going to be better, because we can't really look up the course and see whether it's more or less wind on left or right side. But you kind of determine when you go starboard like the girls did on Team SCA, they have to continue there. You can't just...
Sorry, Knut, if I can just interrupt you there. We've just got a fantastic image at the moment of Mafre, and interesting to note that Alberto Fonseca is the gentleman on the helm at the moment, Mark.
Yeah, no, he's taken the helm. We've seen him at the import, great Brazilian sailor, and doing a really nice job of staying underneath Brunel, just keeping his eyes forward and really powering the boat forward. I've got a question for the guys out on the water when they can come back to us, is whether you think that the teams have had a chance to get a GPS position of these marks up through the fog, and whether that's been an opportunity, so they've got some idea where they're heading off. Well, we'll ask the team on the water as soon as we can come back to them. But now we've got Alva Medica just rolling into attack here.
So very light winds to take the fleet away from the start line. Team SCA heading out to the left-hand side. They started on starboard tack. They obviously think that left-hand side is going to pay. At the top of your picture, you can see the yellow circle. That is the first mark for these boats. Now, it was meant to be a fetch. That was what the race management team were trying to set. But this breeze, very fickle this morning, very difficult to lay a good course.
So the normal conditions are, we start the day with a land breeze coming off the shore, and light conditions, and then the cloud or humidity burns off by the sun, and that turns round to a nice sea breeze coming directly on shore. So this should really be a reach, but it's actually more like a beat and a fetch. And SCA now just tacking over to maintain some control over the fleet, and it looks like they've done really well over on the left.
Now, if you're new to the Volvo Ocean Race, or certainly if you're new to the offshore races inside the Volvo Ocean Race, these races begin with a tight, intense course that takes them round the area next to the host port city. After that, they sail through the leaving gate and on their way. So even though these boats are sailing round the cans close to the city, this is the start of their long journey to complete leg 3.
And this is a great opportunity for the spectators to see the boats inshore racing before they head off down the coast and off to Sanya.
We've got very, very thick fog out there on the water at the moment. Now, this is going to make it quite difficult when you're racing up there. Not only have you got to see the marks, but also judging where the breeze is on the water. That becomes nearly impossible.
Well, they're just sailing blind now. They've just got to be sailing fast. They've got to be going the right direction. They'll probably have a very good idea of how many boats to the left, how many boats to the right. That's what they'll be thinking about. And they'll also be kind of timing the amount of time they spend on either tack.
Well, let's go down to the water where Knut Frostak can give us an idea of what the weather's looking like.
Well, the weather is foggy. Can you hear me here?
Yeah, we can hear you well.
Yeah, that's great. So the weather is foggy. That's what I can say. It's starting to clear up a little, but it's impossible to really judge whether there is more or less wind on left or right side. And we will say that Mafre and Brunel got a nice sort of lead there on the other. And from what we can see, you know, this is it's very, very hard to judge. It's even hard to find the mark. Can you see the mark, Alan?
I can barely see three of the boats here. I was wondering if the fog was so thick that it was actually cutting our RF signal out. But you know what we're looking at here is actually Mapfre and Brunel, and Chris Nicholson, who we've got aboard with me, just told me that, and I remember seeing it on the floor of the boatyard as well, that Brunel has a brand new masthead code 0 on. It's one of the very few sail swaps they're allowed, and they've got height and speed over Mafre, who had the bow down, and I don't know if that's a sail issue or not. Chris, can you tell me if that's a sail thing, or is that just a technique?
Well, I think the shape looks a little bit better, but there has been a difference. I think the difference you see here is more about the breeze and the fact that Brunel just had a little bit better start, but they're certainly looking better shape out here, and they're not actually that far from laying the top mark.
And for everyone to know, in the Volvo Ocean Race 2014-15, you're only allowed to actually use four extra sails. So they've started using one of their 4 sails. That's 25% of all your new sails already.
That's a pretty brave move, isn't it, Knut?
I think it's a pretty early move to sort of start already now to burn up speed, because if this ends up in a really close race in the end, you like to have some really fresh, nice, clean cards in the end.
Can you guys tell us, and tell the people who can't see this very well either, on the virtual, how is it working out from the left to the right side of the fleet?
Well, at the moment, Alan, we've actually got quite a nice split going on. We've got 2 teams heading out to the right-hand side, led by Mafri. Out the left-hand side, Alvi Medica, Team SEA. Dongfeng race team got a little bit more conservative up the middle. But I tell you what, Alan, what I'm surprised about, they are tacking quite a bit, and I was expecting to see them holding their course.
You know, there's an interesting idea of that, Niall. I don't think anyone wants to let anyone get out of sight. It seems like the tacks are coming right when they start to lose sight of each other, just because nobody wants to let anyone squeeze away, or even more importantly, no one wants to be that last boat around these marks, because that could be the start of, as the girls told us in a press conference the other day, that could be the start of 20 days of living the mistake that you started at the very beginning.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, Alan, because there is a big split happening. At the moment, we're just following Mafri. They're out on that right-hand side. They're now finally going for the tack. They're a long way away from the other boats, Mark.
Well, what I've also seen, and it's probably very, very difficult to tell from out on the water as well, is I've seen a bit of a right-hand shift. The breeze is dragged round, which has meant the left-hand fleet, led by Abu Dhabi, is almost making the mark. So all the distance that Brunel and Mapfrey have sailed out to the right could be overstanding distance.
Well, and on your screen at the moment, you can see Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. They've been able to put their bow up a little bit. That's the shift that you're talking about. Maybe that's going to see them to the mark. And just coming into the bottom of your picture there, Team Brunel, Mafri, they're almost on different breeze. They're sailing a completely different angle. Be interesting to see once they finish their speed build up after the tack, if their angle starts to match the other boats. Alvi Medica on the left-hand side. You can see the bow is down. You can see the dots of the track. They're being forced out to left-hand side. That shift for Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing is really playing for them well. That's Ian Walker on board Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. This is a huge win for him. Of course, they had a good day yesterday getting onto the podium, but he's got big ambitions in this fleet.
Absolutely. Just trying to work out the conditions on board, and I can see such different angles that these fleets are sailing. At the moment, Abu Dhabi seems to be in their own personal lift. Everybody else seems to be in breeze further left. This is an old style Olympic course where we used to sail triangles, and at the moment they're sailing in a breeze that they did not expect for these conditions that either blow basically offshore or onshore.
Well, as we just follow now, Mafri, let's just talk a little bit about this team. You know, in the inshore yesterday, it's a slightly different style of racing, but the start of this offshore leg is a little bit like an inshore. And Mafri were left behind on the inshore, struggling at the back when they got the first shift wrong. And what do you know? Here they are on the water, and they've got that first shift wrong. The helm for today, Alberto Francesca. Xabi Fernandez is taking over some of the trimming roles in the middle of the boat. Alberto trying to helm them out of this tight, intense course. He's a fantastic sailor, but unfortunately they're just losing out. There's the virtual eye that you can see. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, Ian Walker, the British sailor, British Olympian, out in front and looking quite comfortable. But looking for the top mark. I mean, it's going to come looming out of the distance. They're looking for a yellow mark on the bow, and at the moment it looks like they're sailing a little bit higher of it. I can only assume that they have got some sort of GPS mark on it, because they seem very confident in that course for that mark, and they're going to leave that mark to the right, leave it to starboard, and head off to the next mark up to I think for this course, I think because of the breeze, because of what we're seeing, they're actually going to go around to the port hand side. The race officer here is really dictated by the breeze that we see, so they're going to go round this next mark to port and then bring himself back down to the starting area.
Back down, so it'll be a reach back down. Far more downwind than originally felt with the offshore breeze. And here they are. They need to just start to bear away a little bit.
Now let's just have a little bit more of a look at Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. They've just set their sails onto the bow as they approach this first mark. It will be a bear away and a jibe at this first mark. I don't expect any of these teams to stand on for better breeze. Surely they're going to sail the shortest distance. There you can see on the bow the white sail. That's the A3 Jenica, white Cuban fiber sail. Very light. You can't really use it in strong winds, upwinds, when there's too much pressure on it. Lighter breeze or downwind, it works a treat. That's the sail that they've got set up to use. And at the moment, you can see they're using their big upwind sail, but there's the windward mark passing around the bow. A nice smooth turn to bring the boat onto the downwind leg. Watch for that jibe. The crew winding in the sail at the front. Ian Walker on the helm, jibing the boat over, trying to keep that turn nice and smooth. And they're unfurling their masthead code 0. So they've got their A3 ready to go, but they think a little bit too early to use it yet.
And the interesting thing now, very confidently, because they've just come from that mark, they will know exactly the heading to go back. So they're going to come back on the reciprocal heading that they've just come from. So they will be able to sail a very, very direct course now, straight back to the original mark.
Well, in second place, Dongfeng Race Team coming up to the top of the course. They've had a reasonably good beat. They weren't caught out by any of those nasty shifts. In fact, they almost played the middle of the track, so quite a gutsy move to put in a lot of tacking in light winds. Windward mark about to come next to their bow, and we're going to expect them to jibe at the top, follow Abu Dhabi down towards the bottom. I mean, this style of racing is very much a marathon. It's not just a sprint. You want to try and claim every little boat length that you can, but always in the back of your mind you're thinking, I've got to keep this boat going all the way to the destination.
Yeah, I mean, we saw at the start of the Cape Town start of leg 2, Abu Dhabi had a couple of reefs in. There were no reason to push it. Very, very conservative start as Dongfeng now comes up to this next mark. Bow comes down.
Dongfeng Race Team about to round the first mark of leg 3. All the crew on the leeward side holding just the right heel on the boat.
Now that is quite a lead that Abu Dhabi have got over the Chinese team of Dongfeng.
Dongfeng Race Team now at the windward mark, furling the masthead code 0. Charles Cordrolia, the Frenchman, on the left-hand side of your screen at the helm. It's a big gap between them and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, but there are plenty more miles to go.
Yeah, over 2 minutes, delta. Nice turn there, nice quick work on the code 0. They'll be able to get away from that mark nice and quickly.
That's a nice mark rounding for Charles Cordrolia. Nothing too aggressive, nice and smooth, quite similar to what we've seen in the practice day. Canute, you're at the mark. How does it all look to you?
Well, I mean, it's obviously a massive lead. I mean, it's interesting to watch down the race course because it hasn't been the same wind direction on the two sides of the course, that's for sure. And even though Brunel and Mapfre went for that right side, they never got the shift. They never got this right-hand shift that Ian has been seeing. And obviously they would have been reaching to the mark and almost running to the mark with it. What do you see, Alan, when we're standing here?
It was really, really wild to watch because Walker played the edge of the shift, and it was actually, the shift was narrow for a while. It was only a few hundred meters across, and Walker got into it and eased his sails and got this burst of speed. No one else got near it, so they were all going probably a knot or two slower than him. And as you just told me off the air, the lead at this top mark is bigger than the lead was when they came in here after 25 days at sea.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to see these gaps after, we've just been racing for 15 minutes, and the gaps between the boats are almost what we see on the legs. But that's how it is. I mean, it's when you have very light airs, things can play out. But I think the biggest play we saw here now was just wind speed, pure wind speed. It is a shift in it, but if you get 2 more knots of wind speed with these huge sails, you do 3 knots more boat speed, and you can generate the boat speed to give you lift, so you're sailing a much better track. Now we have Team SCA getting to the mark here, and we're very good pace in front of Brunel, so they don't have a reasonably good leg, but it's going to be interesting because they're supposed to go reaching. They're supposed to go reaching after for this triangle they're doing here, and that can really be this lead could accelerate into a bigger lead, the bigger gaps after they read the first triangle. What do you read, Nico? Nico, you're watching all the boats here. What do you read into it so far?
To be honest, I feel a bit sorry for Brunel and Mapfre. It looked like they did everything right. extend too far out to the lay line, but you know, Ian Walker on Abu Dhabi just did a great job in the middle, getting that right-hand shift. He laid the top mark. It was like he literally did almost the perfect work, but I'm not sure. It's hard to work out how to do that when you can't see where the mark is and where the breeze is coming. So the guys got what they got, and you know, he's got a great lead, and you know, I'm sure there's going to be a few more changes here yet today.
Well, thanks very much for
Chris
that one, guys.
Nicholson
Canute, sorry, just want to
Win.
pull it back a little bit. Just we got a fantastic shot of the moment of Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, and Mark, you know, you've sailed with Ian Walker and his team. You know, they came into today with a lot of pressure. This is their home port. They really want to do well.
Yeah, I mean, and yesterday's import was a really tricky race for them. They, you know, they were lucky to get a race in. It was incredibly light, and they won the start together with Dongfeng, getting a great start off the pin end. And they had the option to go left or right. They chose to carry on. The SCA, who had quite a difficult start, they got up to the first line. Hang on, here we go. These are the perils of a big jibe if you don't get the code zero curled all the way back in. Here's Map Free here. They tried the jibe without the big furl, and that's exactly why. If you're anyone out there wanting to know why you furl your code zeros in on your manoeuvres, that's exactly why.
Andre Fonseca there, the helm of Mafre at the moment. I mean, that's maybe just a little timing issue, just not quite being in sync with the trimmers. Alvi Medica now approaching the windward mark, the American team. Very, very young team, this team. Big ambitions. They've set themselves quite a target. They really want to see themselves on the podium for this leg.
Here comes the furl. Round they come.
Mark Towell on the grinders. He founded this team with skipper Charlie Enright. Now releasing the line on the head sail. Nice jibe. All the crew looking quite quiet. No real fluster on that boat. Nice and smooth turn. Charlie Enright there, never taking his eyes off the numbers. Takes the boat rack round. That's a much better, that's a nice smooth turn on board Alvi Medica.
Now it looks to me like the visibility is slowly improving, and it would be interesting to see if Dongfeng can actually see Abu Dhabi ahead of them as Abu Dhabi come down to Mark II.
It's a hell of a lead for Abu Dhabi at the moment. I mean, they really are. They've picked off just the right line through all those little shifts and puffs on the first leg. With 5 legs make up this import section to start this offshore race to China. And Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing at the moment are out in front and looking very strong indeed. Their final jibe before reaching the bottom mark, then it's once more again up to an upwind mark. There's the jibe. The masthead code zero comes out. Very light winds you can see in the sail, struggling to set.
So yeah, it seems to get light at the bottom of the course here. They're coming down to Mark II, which they will leave to port. Just picking up speed now as the bow comes down. It does look to me like a little bit of sunshine's trying to break through, and the visibility is improving. Now, at the moment, they're still racing under the sort of cross-shore, offshore breeze of the land. And if the breeze starts to, if the air, so they've got a transition to go through, because we assume that at some point today, that sun, we saw those fantastic aerial shots above the cloud, that sun will burn the cloud off. And then we'll be looking for a change of offshore to the onshore thermal breeze, and we are then looking for that transition. And within the transition, first of all you get something, then you get nothing, then you get something. So lots of tricky places up ahead.
Now that could be a real game changer. Here we see Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, Ian Walker skippering the home team towards the bottom mark. Very light winds on the boat, both foils up out of the water. Most likely the keel just in the central position. So much extra power this boat can provide, but just no need for it right now. Just trying to keep the momentum going. See at the back of the boat, the crew starting to load the lines for the upwind leg.
So you are watching the import version, the import stage of the start for leg 3. As we now glide round, helm down. You can see the guys on the pedestals grinding the code zero in. and then the new sheet will come on, and out it comes. Ian Walker's job to keep the rudders the minimal turn they possibly can.
And Ian Walker, I mean, this is a fantastic sailor on board this boat. I mean, as he starts to bring this team round that bottom mark, this is somebody who's had 2 previous Volvo Ocean races.
Now you can see Justin Slattery vigorously shaking that boom. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to knock the top battens, the battens that form the shape. And the worst thing that can happen is they come round and they end up with a batten pointed the wrong way. That's basically like turning your wing when you're flying up the wrong way. So you get downdraft rather than updraft, so it's absolutely essential that they get that batten through. In some cases, they actually send another person up, one of the crew members, to actually hit it through with their feet. So that is what they were doing. They weren't trying to waft the sail along and pump the boat along. They were trying to get that batten to flick.
Well, there on your screens at the moment, you can see the next leg of the course, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, safely round the bottom mark. Behind them, Dongfeng Race Team leading the chasing pack, and that is a hell of a lead at the moment.
Yeah, it really, really is, and it looks like it's as it's going light on that Mark II. It's really the fleet are really struggling to get down to it. Abu Dhabi managed to get so much further, closer to the mark on deeper, lower angles, and put that really quite a small starboard jibe in. So, but Dongfeng and SCA really, really struggling to get to that mark.
So far around this course, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing has done the up and down, the first part of this course. Now they have to sail a triangle around the 2 buoys at the top, once more round to the starting area, and then they begin their long journey to China. The other boats struggling to stay in contact with Ian Walker. Dongfeng Race Team safely onto the ley line for that bottom mark. But out in front, looking comfortable, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. On board this boat, Adil Khalid, he's the young lad from the United Arab Emirates. This is his second time with Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. He's doing a really nice job of fitting into that team. He's taken on board some of the helming and some of the trimming responsibilities, so he's no passenger on board.
It was great to see as they came off the dock on the dock out. The second the lines were given away, up they went. Up he went with a flag to wave the home crowd goodbye.
Well, Knut, you're on the water. How's it looking now?
Well, obviously Abu Dhabi had a complete free ride down that run compared to the others, because they could almost lay the mark, and the others have been sailing much, much longer. But that's painful. That's very painful. I think what's interesting, I think we should put our eyes a little bit beyond this triangle, because let's talk about what this means for the leg, because now they're going to do this full triangle that Abu Dhabi has just started on, and then they're going to head towards Dubai in a reaching condition. This could stretch out, this could quickly become more than the distance we see here, and then we have 21 to 26 days to talk about. We were just discussing, me and Ian and me and Alan Block here and Chris Nicholson, skipper on Team Vestas Win, about the weight these guys are taking on board, because you have to plan these legs. Right now there's really light wind, and it pays off to be light. And the teams had to give away this morning the stackable weight they have taken. And Alan, what are the numbers you have seen here?
Well, there's a fairly big spread from the lightest boat to the heaviest boat. In fact, there's just over 160 kilograms, or about 350 pounds, the weight of 2 fairly good sized sailors, in difference between the lightest boat in the fleet, which is Team Brunel Bauer-Becking, and the heaviest boat in the fleet, which is Alva Medica. Abu Dhabi, meanwhile, and Ian Walker have played it pretty conservatively. They're sort of smack in the middle. So you would think that having that one person worth less weight on the boat might give Brunel a big advantage, but whatever it was canceled out by Ian Walker and Sci-Fi calling the perfect lane to that top mark, right?
And exactly. This is about weight you're allowed to stack. So that's weight you can move from one side to the other. Nico, obviously you want to have heavy stackable weight when it's windy, but when it's light you don't have any weight, right?
Yeah, and I think you find in this league there's so many light air sections. As you said, it's reaching, running out over to Sri Lanka, and I think all these guys at the moment are about trying to get the break early on, and maybe that would be one reason again why you'd go a little bit lighter and try and take your gain while you can.
I just spoke to, just before the start, to the race meteorologist Gonzalo Infante in Spain, and he he talked about pretty light running, reaching conditions all the way to Sri Lanka. He predicted that the boats will be at the south tip of Sri Lanka on the 11th. That's 8 days from now. So pretty slow and easy leg where you don't need a lot of stability in the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. And you've got to also think if the boats are going to get planing, the guy who is the lightest is going to plane the first. So it can actually, in certain conditions, make a massive difference. Just that small amount less weight.
You know, the best news for Ian Walker in this whole deal, and I talked to him on the dock, and Ian's very focused right before a race, but I did ask him, you really do want that picture as you're leaving your home base, your sponsor's home, and the place you trained for the past, 5 years almost, right? You want to have that picture of you leading the whole fleet with the city in the distance. And here we started the race and you couldn't see anything. Finally now, though, the fog is actually lifting. We're starting to be able to see a good half-mile away. And even the outlines of the city are coming into view. So Ian is not only going to leave with a big lead here, it looks like, but he's going to leave with that all-important money shot.
Exactly. So we're just next to Ian Walker here in Abu Dhabi's Azam. And they're having a pretty good pace on and a very, very, very convincing lead. I mean, that lead can stretch into an hour very quickly if they get into more breeze when they start reaching away from Abu Dhabi after the triangle.
Well, thanks very much for that, guys. I'm glad to see that the fog is finally lifting. I mean, one of the interesting things here is what this local weather is going to do. There we can see Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, Ian Walker helming the boat. Behind him, still that pack chasing hard. The other boats not quite able to close up. But Mafre now round the bottom mark. Andre Fonseca on the helm, stepping in on the helm. Iker Martinez having to take a step away for his Olympic commitments. This boat has just failed to find a little bit of rhythm today.
Well, these shots are just showing how huge that code 0 is, almost sheeting right back to the aft quarter. And that's pretty tight. You can see how tight it is along the foot. Really trying to get the height out of them. And still you can see also the boats sailing fairly upright. Very, very sticky. They're looking to sail at a sort of 30 degrees plus of heel. And that's why they try to get the weight forward to get it out of the back of the boat where it's so wide and a bigger wetted surface. So yeah, just trying to keep the boat moving.
There you can see the crew on board Mafre just trying to make those last little tweaks to the boat, trying to get that best bit of speed out of the sails. And when you're racing in these conditions, it's so easy just to fall out of the groove, and it just takes you an age to wind the boat up again. Still out in front, very, very comfortable, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, and Ian Walker just with his hand over the wheel, maybe making a little slight adjustment to the position of the keel, just trying to hold the best heel angle on the boat. Simon Fisher giving him his input on where the wind is going to be. They look very confident to me, Mark.
Well, they've been blessed by some great shifts that have come their way, and although this is still a beat, it's a long leg on port, which is going to do them a lot of good because they came around the leeward mark on port. They've not tacked yet. They can really keep the speed going.
Well, let's just take a little bit of a moment there with Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. Alvi Medica now just approaching that bottom mark. I'll mention Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing in just a second, but that's a huge distance for Alvi Medica to try and claw back up. And I was talking to Charlie Enright just a couple of days ago, and he was just not happy with anything other than a podium finish for this team. They really want to stamp their authority. Very young team, very ambitious team, and they've given the other teams a hell of a head start.
Well, let's not dig them a hole just yet. There's a lot of things that can go on, even just in this short triangle course before they leave the leaving mark. There's a transition to come. We keep talking about this transition, and basically they've got an onshore, sort of cross-shore breeze at the moment, but eventually the sea breeze is going to come in again. But more importantly, this evening, the sea breeze is going to drop if it does come in, and then the land breeze, the drainage, the air off the land will come back in. And there's always this period of absolutely no wind. And so do you sail in the old breeze as far as you can, or do you set yourself up near the shore to actually get the new breeze early? And it's a case of almost sort of swapping sides, constantly swapping sides as they sail up to the Straits of Hormuz.
Well, standing just next to Charlie Enright, the skipper, is Will Oxley, just walking to the back of the boat, just putting his navigational equipment down. We always talk about this team being a bunch of young guns, but the one father of the team that they brought in is Will Oxley from Australia, 49 years of age. And when I was talking to him earlier, he said the one problem with sailing with these young guys, they're committed, they're keen, they're hardworking, but the sense of humour does grind him a little bit. He says he just puts his headphones on, goes down to the bottom of the boat, I've got to tune out. This is somebody who's got a wealth of experience. He's done 2 Volvo Ocean races as a navigator, and he's got some 250,000 offshore miles. So even though a young team, they've certainly got some strength. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing tacked over the local boat, now heading to the next mark at the top of the course, and they don't show any signs of stopping.
Well, it looks like they've nailed that ley line. The long port gave them the opportunity to get a bit closer, to take some of the variability out of it, and they seem to be able to sail straight to that next mark. Let's just see if there's any more shift in the air. Still very light, still very, very upright. Keeping the weight forward and trying to keep the stern out of the water.
Really having to pin that masthead code 0 in. You can see it just on the right-hand side of the screen, crashing into the stanchions at the bottom of the boat. Just having to trim it in right in tight to carry the boat upwind.
The 2 people sat on the rail there, what we call fondly jumpers. And we'll tell you why they're called jumpers, because at the last leaving mark they will jump off the boat. So they've actually had a ride on the race boats. Many of the boats take VIPs, people have won competitions, members of the public, to just give them a fantastic opportunity to be on the pitch and racing with the professionals before they head off on their longer leg.
And I believe on Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing they've even auctioned it off in a funny way, where they've asked people to submit the best picture of them jumping in a spectacular way, and the winner, that's the winner you're seeing on the boat right now. So I'm fingers crossed, I want to see a spectacular jump off that boat when we pass the leaving mark.
Absolutely.
So the windward mark now in sight for the sailors. You can see the crew starting to move around gently down to the leeward side, getting the next transition ready. Should just be bear away onto more of a thicker run while they sail along back towards the top of the course, and then down towards the starting area. The crew now moving right the way down. That's the transition to that lighter breeze. It's getting a little bit lighter at the top, Mark. Not a lot of pressure.
And you can see a second ago they were laying the mark, and now the bow is down and the direction is going back to that left-hand pressure. And it'll be really interesting to see what we've got, eyes on the water, and whether you can see the shifting conditions on the water.
Canute, how does it look from where you are?
Well, we are just and obviously, yes, it is a bit patchy out here. It's difficult to see exact trends in the wind, but Ian Walker has it very much sorted out. Wind seems a lot more stable now that it has started to clear up, and the fog is gone, so it's more easy for everyone to read the race course. It's interesting, Brunel has chosen to go all inshore on this leg, but I mean, in the heads of the sailors right now, what they're thinking about is, obviously it's important to get first to the next mark, but they have 4,600 miles ahead of them, and they're starting to think about what are the first moves going to be for them along the coast up to Dubai, around the Straits of Hormuz, and then going down. And I mean, I have Chris Nicholson here, and we cannot not have Chris Nicholson here and not use him, because Nico, you should have been out there. Is this the first time you watch a Volvo Ocean race start?
This is the first time live that I've watched one. I've obviously seen it all on the TV, but no, this is the first time live. But it's such a long way to go. But I think if you can see the intensity that's on board, everyone's treating it. Everything is extremely important. You never know. One of these days, someone could get a break even at this early on and stay with that break all the way. I don't think this is one of those legs. There's going to be too much happen at the Straits of Hormuz and also in the Malacca Straits. So, but that won't change the fact that these guys are going to push and try and get every single metre they can out of the boats all the way from here to those pressure points.
I mean, you were supposed to be there, obviously, with Team Vestas Win, and you would have planned for this leg sailing from Abu Dhabi to Sanya. It's one of the legs where we have in the race predictions the biggest spread. When we have the quickest one at 21 days and the longest at 26 days. It's a huge spread in an offshore leg. How would you plan for this leg to China, to Sanya? These sort of milestones, the breaking points.
Well, I guess when you see that the spread can be, a 6-day spread, it just shows you just how variable that it can be. So you've got to factor in a lot of things, and more often than not, it will be to try and factor in those light air zones. Again, the Straits of Hormuz, but the Mica Straits. There's so many things that can go right and wrong on the Mica Straits in terms of the extra shipping. A lot of thunderstorms, and whether or not you need to be on the coast or in the middle of the straits.
Now we just sorry to jump in there, but we just have Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing with Azam rounding the top mark here, nicely bearing away to get a port rounding and then hit for the next mark before they go back down to the start line again. So nice easy mark rounding there on Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, and we can start our clocks, because this is a big gap which has grown a lot from the first time we saw them rounding the top mark, right?
It was interesting. Like about 4 minutes ago, we're in behind Abu Dhabi, and they clearly weren't laying the top mark. It's like the stars are aligning here for them today. They weren't laying the mark by a long way, and they got a little bit of a right-hander, and now they've laid the mark. Dongfeng went further, I think, trying to get to the lay line because they saw Abu Dhabi not going to lay the line, and what it's turned out is a net gain for Abu Dhabi. And as Alan said, the sun's breaking through, the skyline's going to be in the background very soon, and a huge lead at these early stages.
Do you think this is Ian's luck leg? How much does luck play? I mean, offshore racing. Do you believe in it?
Very little. You look at the statistics, and it's almost always the good guys pop up there in the end. You see some teams get some bad luck, but more often than not, it's almost always the good teams pop out in the front.
This leg to China, I stopped you there at the Malacca Strait. What, apart from the Malacca Strait and the shipping and all the challenges there, what is the thing on this leg that's going to make you win it, you think? What is the most important thing?
I think for these guys, with how close the racing is going to be and how tight it is with these one design boats, it's going to be the boat that doesn't have any trouble. It doesn't have any trouble with ships, it doesn't have any trouble in a big light air zone. But then, say, going up some of the coastal areas once you're past Singapore is not getting a fishing net, not having issues with fishing boats. So it's probably, of all the legs, I'd say this is the one where you can be slowed up by an external action. And it won't be really down to the guys. They may not have a choice with it. So and that's where most of the variables are on this leg.
And we just spoke about a few minutes ago about the match racing you guys were doing up the Malacca Strait 2 races ago, which is, for me as a race organizer, a nightmare to watch, because we see all these ships on AIS and signals, and then we see you guys having match racing tactics between all the anchored ships. Tell me about that one.
It's hard to sort of relate just how busy it can be there. Like literally, when there's so many boats anchored there, even that it looks like the land. It looks like the city full of lights, but it's actually anchored ships, and the boats are weaving in and out of them. It's all, it's on radar, it's on AIS, and you have a full watch. But you really need to be careful in this part of the world.
Well, let's get back to the race course. Alan, what are you seeing here in front of us?
While you guys are sitting there yapping away, I've been watching the racing, and you guys could talk for hours, couldn't you? All you old Volvo sailors can just talk for hours about this stuff. It's pretty awesome. But what I'm seeing is Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing is more or less stopped all the way on the right, and Dongfeng is coming in with a head of steam. So there's a big transition zone right where we're at, where it goes from light air to extremely light air, and that's when really anything can happen. And maybe Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing might not get that money shot we talked about. The guys up in the booth, what do you see on the virtual and the numbers? Does it look as bad out there on the far well, the far right from where we're looking, but where Abu Dhabi is compared to this top mark?
Well, at the moment, we're just following Dongfeng race team, and they do look like they've got good pressure. They're up at around about 8 knots. The water is sailing clear from the bow. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, they're down to about 6. They're about halfway along that top reach. Crew right the way to the front of the boat, and it does look a little bit more static. Do you see any pressure coming in, Alan?
You know, Niall, the pressure is all back where the boats are starting to come into the mark, and where Dongfeng is sailing, the pressure is just going to start to go away. As you can see Dongfeng bearing away, you'll see them slow down just a little bit. And I tell you, it really doesn't look great out there. It'll be interesting to see whether they try and do something different, even maybe go for a jibe or something to try and stay out here in this pressure. Well, it looks like and faster than Brunel or than Abu Dhabi at the moment. But I tell you what, boys, I do not see anything that looks like a big puff anywhere on this course. At least it's getting nice and sunny and warm, though, for all of us, and these boats sure do look beautiful up against this.
Well, thanks for that, Alan. We had a fantastic helicopter shot just a moment ago, and this water is looking very static. Out in the lead, Ian Walker, skipper of the home boat, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. Starting to look a little bit behind him, and can I almost see a smile on his lips?
Yeah, Ian Walker looking very, very relaxed there. You know, this is a great, the race is almost unfolded in front of him. Much as he'd hoped that to be happening yesterday. But, he's turned around and looked back, and it must be a huge delta, a huge lead that he's got. And you can just see by his stance, he's very, very relaxed. And Neil McDonald beavering around in the middle of the boat on the main, and Neil's having a little chuckle as he takes a drink of water. A great old friend, sailed with Ian Walker on the Green Dragon, and great asset on board, and a very different sailor to Phil Harmer. Age experience, and he was with the Spanish on Telefonica in the last race, Neil would be an interesting asset to the race coming on.
Well, there we can see the all-female team, SCA, getting near to that top mark. They're currently in 3rd position at the moment. The water not giving any clues about where the pressure might be. Now, very interesting here, I can see that they've got their leeward foil. Now it starts coming out of the deck, but they had their leeward foil all the way down for that upwind leg. Some of the other boats didn't. That's a little clue about what's happening underneath the water and how they might be using their swinging keel. There you can see the bow team at the front. No real sail change is going to happen on this leg. It's just a nice, gentle bearing away onto the top reach, and then they've got to change their trimming mode. Trying to walk around the boat very, very carefully. The stern of the boat now clearing the windward mark onto the reach, trying desperately to make the transition. There you see more crew weight going forward. Very light winds.
It is light winds, but just looking across the fleet, it's amazing how different the speeds are. We've got SCA just going around the mark at 6.5 knots. Brunel and Mapfre, we've got Brunel going at 4 knots, Mapfre going at 6 knots, rolling them, really coming in. So they must have actually bought a bit of pressure. And Mapfre just going so much faster than Brunel as they roll over the top. This is really painful stuff for the overall leader here, Brunel. And you can see the speed difference between Mapfre and Brunel.
Well, bow becking just being rolled by Andre Fonseca there. I mean, Andre Fonseca, he's an inshore champion of multiple classes, and this is somebody who's got a big sailing pedigree. Bow becking, he's an offshore sailor. This is his 7th time at the Volvo Ocean Race.
Now there's another thing, the ramification here. We better hope that Brunel can get enough speed and keep enough speed to actually lay this mark. And it's looking really, really tight, because the last thing they want to be doing here is putting another tack in. And it looks like once Mapfre here clears away, the breeze, the good breeze, will come back for Brunel, and Brunel will be able to get through that mark there.
That is just what you don't want to happen. Right on those last few boat lengths to go for the windward mark, you've got your ley line tight, and then another boat just takes your breeze. Amazing shots, as you can see out into the distance, the horizon there just melting into the sky. Team Brunel just struggling to get back up to speed after Mapfre rolling over the top of them. Team SCA safely onto halfway point of that top reach. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing comfortably out in front. We're around about halfway round this inshore section of the leg 3 course. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing approaching the next mark. They're going to go round it to port anti-clockwise, down to the starting area one last time, and then sailing off to China.
So Abu Dhabi now still trying to get down.
And their speed is slowing. They really have lost a little bit of pace. We saw the boats rounding the reaching mark at the beginning of this leg, and they had good pace on them. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing now just really closing down slowly, and there's the numbers for you. On the right-hand side, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, 4.5 knots. The boats chasing from the left, 5-6 knots.
So we call this compression. We've seen this so often on the offshore legs where the leading boats are up ahead and they go into an area of little wind, no wind, and then the boats behind that are still in the old pressure compress right up, concertina right up to them. And you can see how slow now Abu Dhabi is as they creep round the front of their big code 0, just luffing a little bit, just trying to get around the mark. Looks like Ian Walker's come down to the leeward wheel to be able to see the mark as he sails round here. Just talking the boat round. Now this is the important
there's not a lot of tide off the beach here. However, it is having an effect, and they've just had to crawl that boat a little bit past the mark to stop being swept onto it. Light winds now facing the leader of this race.
Now on this next jibe, they should have a little bit more current just underneath them, and that'll actually accelerate them down to this next mark. So we should be able to see Abu Dhabi open up again in slightly faster numbers. But they have certainly lost a little bit of that lead as they came down, and the guys behind them concertinaed into it. Good turn, still very slow, just picking up speed. Big code 0 just starting to take action there. Nice to see the spectator boats are all behaving. Nice, marshals are doing a good job keeping the waves down. Last thing you want is some waves and bobble. There goes Slattery again on his main. That was at Parkinson. Luke Parkinson getting the top batten through before he walks up to the foredeck very nauseously to get the weight forward, and off he goes.
And this is Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, the home boat, on their way to the last mark before they turn and head out to sea. There's the view from the virtual eye. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing round the top mark, out in front, looking very comfortable. Alvi Medica at the back, and they still haven't got onto that reaching leg. So big difference between the fleet.
Yeah, Abu Dhabi over a leg in front of the trailing Alva Medica.
Well, they're going to come downwind through the gate that you can see in the middle of your screen, those 2 yellow marks out in front of Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. Once they come through that gate, they're then going to sail off and out onto the further reaches of leg 3, and it's going to be a very challenging first section. That first night is going to be very hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Different teams take different opinions about when they go into offshore mode. There's watches to go in. Obviously, all the boats, all the teams are up on deck racing the boats hard. There's a point where they're going to go into their rolling watches. We can talk about that a little later as they get more into sort of offshore mode. But at the moment, we've got images of Dongfeng coming down, and again, you can almost see a little bit of current going from left to right of your picture, making it just a bit harder to lay this next mark. As one of the course marshals comes in, I'm sure they're taking a little bit of a snap of the cityscape behind them. Dongfeng just coming down to the penultimate mark of this last triangle of the import section of leg 3.
Dongfeng race team leading the chasing pack. Charles Caudrelier from France, 40 years of age, at the helm of his boat. 2 young Chinese sailors on board who only started sailing seriously only a few years ago. An incredible testament to this team's training program. There you can see the tide holding that boat back from the mark. There isn't a lot of current here, but when it gets light winds, the tide is suddenly quite an important factor, and we are right at the point of maximum current. That aerial shot now just showing you how Dongfeng race team keeping the bow up from the mark. They don't want to get dragged down onto the buoy. Shift goes their way. They're able just to lean onto the sails. The speed comes in. Quadrelia obviously feeling he's got enough room now between him and the mark.
He is coming down very close to that mark, but he's steering from the leeward helm, which is exactly the right thing to do to be able to see the mark as they turn the boat and curl the boat round, and in come the code 0 for the jibe. Got to get that clue, that sheet end of the sail. There goes the main across, and then ready. We're going to see the sheet come on to the new side and grind on. Here comes the trimmer. Out it comes, couple of wraps, and then there we go. Another shake of the main to get those battens through. Just shows how light it is in these conditions.
And it's important to note what you were saying earlier about this transition into the offshore sailing. They're sailing now with 8 crew on board, but of course at one point they're going to have to put half of those teams down to sleep. So it's going to be a very interesting moment. When do they flick that switch? When do you go and put your navigator, maybe the rest of the crew downstairs? I mean, what's the trigger for that?
Well, I think when you realise that you've got to be racing, constantly, and they'll want to actually get away here and consolidate their second position, and it maybe won't be later into the day. In fact, tiredness helps. You want to be tired in the first time you hit the bunk, because you've been living onshore with your normal routine of day and night, longer sleeps, and you kind of really aren't tired enough to get to sleep on your first night. So you don't mind doing a big day and into the night, racing intensely, and then you go into your watch, get some sleep in it. You've got half a chance to actually get some real sleep before you get up on watch.
Next to crawl their way round the penultimate mark and try and get over the tide, Team SCA, skippered by Sam Davis. But earlier in the race we saw Carolyn Brouwer on the helm of this boat. She was the helm that brought the boat that victory in the import race. Just struggling to keep the bow moving over the tide. Really hitting this mark at just the wrong moment when the tide is at its strongest, but they've built themselves up enough of a buffer zone, bring the bow down, the crew ready to make that transition for the next leg.
Here we go, here comes the jibe. They can put more people on the handles because they're sailing with 11. And look at that, spectator boat or Marshall very close. And this is interesting, they've sailed a little bit beyond the mark. Not the greatest furl, but doesn't matter. Out it comes again. That caught the spectator boat out a little bit by sailing beyond, and that's a smart move. They waited until the boat felt right to turn.
Still Carolyn Brouwer on the helm of that boat, and there we can see the Team SCA spectators supporting. They've got a huge supporting group, this team. They really have warmed to everybody. Everybody I know, everybody I see round the race village is wearing a blue and magenta Team SCA t-shirt. It's fantastic. There's a little update on your leader through the virtual graphic. Team Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing out in front. Oh, look at the breeze mark. It's light out there.
Seriously light. This is where everyone needs to get to the foredeck, and low and light, and you can just see how leaden these heavy sails really are here. And the good news for this team and all of the teams now on this leg is they will have a bit of current pushing them that way. When it goes really, really light, they've actually got to position themselves the right side of the mark, otherwise they'll be swept the wrong side of the mark. So it wouldn't surprise me if they put a very ginger jibe back in to make sure that they're the right side of the mark.
Well, let's go out to our commentary team on the water who are by the leader. How does it look, guys?
Well, we're next to Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing here, and watching Ian Walker's legendary steering techniques. He always steer with his fingertips, like he's sort of at an angle, very, very focused. But one thing is for sure, Chris Nicholson, skipper on Team Vestas win with me here. Ian is not going to walk away with this one because the wind just died and the whole fleet is going to be packed together again, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly looks like you can't have any rest on your laurels. I'm sure he was very comfortable in the lead he had, and then went into a big light air zone, and then you see Don Feng now breaching that gap.
So the gap's going to get smaller. One thing we started talking about here, now we're exactly 1 hour into leg 3. That's 1 hour into 21 to 26 days of racing. And at some stage you go to the watch systems on board because you're going to start resting, you're going to start getting into routines about who's driving and sleeping, and that. When do you do it? When would you do it right now? Is it different, light airs, heavy airs? How do you treat it?
Yeah, I think this one's going to be quite different. Normally we go into it as soon as possible, and normally it would coincide, say, with 4 p.m. or 8 p.m. and that sort of lines up to our 4-hour watches. So, but I think the way the situation is now, it's now 3 o'clock local time. I can't see these guys going into a watch system until probably 8 o'clock, so probably another 5 hours for everybody. And then it's always difficult to get some sleep in the first night. So really you're only talking about the guys getting, short little sleeps. But I think this is going to be really intense, I think, for the guys. Even though it's light air, people may not think it's intense, but it's far more work in these conditions than it would be in 15 knots and steady breeze.
That's quite an interesting thing for those who are not offshore sailors themselves to realize that for those who race out there, it's actually much harder to race in light airs than in strong air, because in light airs you know that if you get left behind, you're stuck behind, and that can grow to massive deficits, right?
Absolutely, and you got to think in light airs there's just more variables, like the sea state changes, the wind's always shifting direction and strength, and these guys have to react to every time that happens. And if it's in medium air, normally all things are fairly steady, so there's going to be no rest at all for these guys.
If you think, right now there's no breeze. The wind is really dying, and Abu Dhabi just jibed in front of us here now that they can't even lay the next mark. They're going to have to work themselves down to that mark, and then they're going to try to make a good strategy from here to the Straits of Hormuz. If this is what they see the whole day today, what do you think the racing is going to be like?
Well, Well, you'd think it should be close, but again, while there's all these variables that these guys don't have any control over, it makes it just that much more difficult for them, and then it places more emphasis again on getting absolute every last inch you can out of the boat and the performance so that you can stay in the front.
Some drivers are better than other drivers, right, in different conditions, and how do you work on Team Vestas Win? How do you work on board in conditions like this? Is there some guys you just this is the guy I have to have on the wheel right now, or do you have to rotate to make sure everyone has enough rest and things like that?
No, we try and keep the best drivers, but we also try and have a policy where it's quite it's easy for anyone who's not comfortable. They just say the word, and then we replace them with another driver, and that's more often, I think, the best policy. The guys know when they're not doing a good job on the wheel at any one time. So, and as long as you don't mind putting your hand up and going, hey guys, I'm struggling on the wheel now, who's next? And then the watch captains usually choose that driver.
Alan, you're watching behind us here. It's not a lot of breeze down on that bottom mark, but Ian Walker and Abu Dhabi's Azam still have a pretty good lead, but it's shrunk a lot, hasn't it?
It's shrunk a lot, and I think, as Chris pointed out, in these conditions there are some things that can pretty easily happen to create a big gap, but there are sort of isolated puffs on the course, and as this breeze transitions from the offshore to the onshore, we're going to have a big nasty zone, which is where Abu Dhabi is right now, where they could be 0 to sort of 4 knots of breeze for a little while until the sea breeze stabilizes. As we saw yesterday, the sea breeze can take 2 or 3 hours to stabilize, if it even comes in at all. And those 2 or 3 hours, this next 2 or 3 hours, I tell you what, Knut, these could be incredibly crucial to the whole rest of the leg. You guys think that the straits will compress them, but the fact is that if one of these boats can touch that sea breeze first and do 12 knots while the other guys are doing 4.5 knots or 3 knots like we're watching right now, the lead could be 15 miles in a matter of hours. And I think that's what that you have to pay attention to here in this very transitional state with a very light thermal. And Walker's just going to try and get to it first, and the rich might very well get a lot richer. That being said, Dongfang has kept it really well. As the crowd is starting to go wild, the horns are filling the air. I can hardly hear myself talk right now, as it seems like half of Abu Dhabi is out here banging on their ship's horns, and Ian Walker waving to the crowds in the distance. So even in this very light air, there's still plenty of excitement here for the hometown favorite, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing and Azam.
Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, skippered by Ian Walker, sails past the final mark, the clearing mark, the last obstacle between them and the open ocean all the way to China. They've done a fantastic job on this import section. Now let's see if they can keep that lead all the way to the finish.
Well, I think the word of this leg is going to be transitions. You will see them sailing through so many transitions as the people on board who are about to jump off get ready. We'll, I'm sure, look at that, they're lining up towards the back, these competition winners. And there is...
So this is on board Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. These two people, these are the ones that entered this competition and were lucky enough to be given the chance to jump off a rather, it's light winds, but the boat's not moving too slowly.
It's not, and but they're also going to be judged on how well they judge. There's a handshake there from Ian Walker and Neil MacDonald, and Matt Knighton, the onboard reporter, there to document it all. We can talk about that role a little later. But here we go.
Here's the nervous step up to the side. He's got a slip. That was a fantastic effort. Didn't hesitate at all.
Commitment. We give them 10 out of 10 for commitment, and there goes the life jacket.
Okay, well, they're going to get picked up out of the water. That's a lifetime experience for them, of course. Let's have a little bit of a look at the fleet behind Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, the chasing pack. Dongfeng race team, Charles Quadrelia, very light winds as they get round the last leaving mark. They're now onto the pure offshore portion of this course.
Absolutely, and we talked about these transitions all the way up. So basically a transition is when the thermal breeze changes to, for the land breeze that happens overnight, changes to the thermic sea breeze where the land starts to suck in more pressure. And you see in the middle of it there is often no wind at all, and there's so many coastlines, left and right coastlines, that they're going to be sailing along as the next jumper gets ready.
So here we can see the jumper getting ready on Dongfeng race team, and a fantastic dive head first, real commitment on board that boat. That's fantastic. Nice to be in Abu Dhabi though, where the water isn't too cold.
Almost lost his hat. Now he's very comfortable. And the red bag there, that's actually the film footage from the start that the onboard reporter would have given the jumper to take back to us, so we can get some great live onboard shots as SCA come around the next mark.
Carolyn Brower helming the boat, Team SCA, round the last leaving mark. All-female team, the first all-female team in over a decade for the Volvo Ocean Race, but that's not enough for them. They want to be considered the race-winning boat. They're out to beat everybody on this leg.
Just having a look at the deltas there between Dongfeng and Abu Dhabi. 2 minutes 13, so he's got a little bit of the distance back. The leader's opened up again. Sam Davis, close on Sam Davis, very happy to survey all that is in the middle of the boat.
Sam Davis just taking over the main trim for today, and I understand, Knut, that you're on the water. The jumpers, that looked like fun.
Yes, that was a good sight. I think it was a pretty easy jump though. It wasn't too much breeze, and I was just telling a funny story from '94 when we had a jumper in Fremantle in Australia on Tokyo with Chris Dixon, who refused to jump. And there's a lot of big great white sharks there, and in the end I think the rumor in the story is that Chris Dixon in the end pushed him over, and it was pretty far offshore, and he had a flare in his hand and he was sitting in the water waiting. But here he was pretty safe. He was light airs and a lot of boats to pick the jumper up, so it's pretty warm in the water here. It's not too bad. Apparently there are a few sharks, but that's not the issue.
Well, it's a lot better than when I did it in Alicante a few years ago, and I had the full Gumby suit, survival suit, and I looked like I was about to brave the Arctic wilds. And then I look over to the Puma boat at the time, and one of the world's top surfers, Laird Hamilton, was in a pair of board shorts with his golden locks blowing in the wind, and did a backflip, a double backflip or something off the back.
Flexing his muscles.
Flexing his muscles. I said, well, how come they put this suit on me? I could have done that. I know. I don't think
something to do with the muscles, I think.
Well, we're just getting some images of the water. Team Brunel having to, they're just unfurling their A3 again. It almost looked like they had to do a double jibe there maybe with Mafre. And there was a little bit of an incident yesterday with Team Brunel getting a bit too close to a boat and having to take a bit of avoiding action at the last minute. So this just goes to show it's a long way to go. It is a marathon leg, but when you get two competitive boats together, they try and push it as hard as they can. There we can see the helm on board Mafre, standing in for Iker Martinez. Xabi Fernandez now in the middle of your shot. He's the Olympic teammate of Iker Martinez. Iker has now gone back to have a little bit of a work on his Olympic campaign. Xabi Fernandez very excited to take control of this boat for the next leg. There we can see Ian Walker handed over the helm on board Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. So they're starting to get into their next transition mark.
Yeah, and very, very relaxed, just looking around. The interesting thing here now, that they've already been happy to change back to Tuni on the helm. And so that's Roberto de Catra. And again, just trying to get into the swing of things.
And is it just me,
nice,
or is he copying Ian Walker's helming
He's got
style?
a very similar stance there, hasn't he?
We talked a lot about the light fingers of Ian Walker, just trying to stay in tune with the boat, not trying to unsettle anything. And there we can see something, well, if the great man does that, I'll do it the same. Now, in the middle of your picture, there is Neil McDonald, just tucked down out of the breeze. Neil McDonald, he's been brought on to Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. Phil Harmer, one of the trimmers, he had to step off for injury. No one likes me do it, but you've got to be on your best form. So Neil McDonald, the British sailor, 200,000 nautical miles worth of experience. He's come on board the boat. He said he retired earlier, but very happy to be on back. Let's cut back to the rest of the fleet and see how we're doing. Mafre and Team Brunel seems to have sorted themselves out after that little bit of a tussle there.
Yeah, I think what we saw as we cut to those pictures was the two boats coming together and Mafre jibing away from Brunel. And Brunel just having a very, very slow furl and speed dropping down as now Mafre comes down to this last leaving mark. And there you go, getting the main in. It doesn't matter pulling the main in quite quickly because that helps to actually push those battens over as Rob Greenhalgh now starts to pump the hydraulics on. He'll probably be putting a little bit of outhaul on, or there are a number of things that are controlled by the hydraulics. We've got the Vang, the kicking strap on the main, the outhaul.
Bauerbeking now round that bottom mark, chasing Mafre. Had a little bit of a tussle maybe on that last leg. We didn't get a chance to see it, but certainly they were having to make some manoeuvres that they wouldn't choose to do. Lost them a little bit of pace. You can see how much that sail is strapped into the boat. The whole back, 90% of that sail, flat as a pancake. Very difficult to get these sails into shapes that they're just not naturally cut into. And there aren't a lot of sails that these boats are allowed to use. They have 7 race sails and 1 storm jib, and those sails have to get them all the way around the world in a variety of different wind conditions and different wind angles. So really, you've got to have a good trimmer on board.
And something tells me they'll be using that Code Zero a hell of a lot on this leg. They really are seeing a light leg. There goes the jumper. Oh, good bomb.
Very, very, very good jump. Very committed. And once again, a little bit of footage coming off the boat in the red bag.
They'd be proud of that in the school playground. When the school goes a good bomb into the water, almost run him over. There you go. Up you come. What a great experience to have. Yeah, save the media. Then get the guy in.
It's a little bit difficult, isn't it, getting out of the water? I mean, from that aerial shot, you can't quite see, but that rib is actually quite high out of the water. So now in the virtual eye, we can see the race course just peeling out in front of us. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing out in front. Dong Fong leading the chasing pack, slightly down on speed. I think Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing may be hitting a little bit more pace. But there is Dong Fong Race Team. Dong Fong, the title sponsor. It's China's leading truck brand. And they've also got 2 other platinum sponsors. We've got Ailaoios Tyres. They're actually a provider for all of Dongfeng's tyres, and also the city of Xi'an, where apparently Tai Chi was founded back in the day. So it's a very they've got some nice cultural sponsors and also some big industry behind them. And they are heading off to China, and of course they're going to be the home favourite. At the back of the boat, we can see the brains of the operation. That tablet that you can see the navigator holding in his hand, all the information from the boat being fed to one place so the decisions can be made as quick as possible. Alvi Medica still to round the last mark, struggling to get back into the game, but of course, so many miles yet to go on this leg. Very talented team, very ambitious team, and they really can overhaul. I mean, Mark, as you say, the breeze, it is expected to change. And if you're at the back now with Alvi Medica, you've got to be looking up and you've got to be thinking, when can I make my move?
Well, we keep on talking about these transitions and the concertinaing of when the front of the pack slows down. And it does give them an advantage, because looking down further the course, and this is the last boat round the last mark, so we can now kiss goodbye the triangular course of the pre-start, and now we are on the ocean leg for real. And we can start talking about what it is and some of the decisions that these teams will start to make, because there's so many thin corridors of geography that they're going to be sailing down. And we're going to watch. I wonder what nationality this chap is.
Well, this guy is he's from Rhode Island. He's an American chap.
I would never have guessed.
No, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. There's something about him, isn't there? I don't know what it is, but something gives it away. But Alvi Medica run a very interesting jumper program. They actually auction off their place for a charitable donation, because of course Alvi Medica is a big giver for cardiac charities. So this gentleman that will be jumping off here, he's been the largest donator to the charity. He gets to have this jump seat, and they auction off these positions all the way around the world. So if it sounds like the kind of thing you want to do, and you want to do a little bit for charity, get in touch with the team, have a look at their website, have a little go at it.
And get your wallet out for a good cause. So there's Amory Ross, the onboard reporter, taking his memory card out of his camera. Shake his hands, look after that. Give that to Leon Sefton when you get into the crowd, and he's ready to go.
He's taking his sunglasses off. He's put them in his pocket. You've got to be nervous about losing things there.
Saying, "Can you just check my life jacket?"
Now, of course, I mean, even if this weather was bad, even if, not quite sharks in the water, but even if it was a difficult jump, they've got to do it. That's the price you pay for having this joyride in the first place. You have to get off.
If you don't jump, you're going to get pushed. And he's going from the high side.
Oh,
Big,
that's brave.
Triple Salco here, we're expecting. Up he comes. Just checking he can stand on things.
Is that a run
Here we
up?
go.
He's almost taken.
Oh, yes.
That is fantastic. Well, that's the winner for me. That's the best that we've seen. A nice run up to the diving platform, and then very committed.
And he didn't even lose his hat.
Didn't even lose his hat, absolutely. And interestingly enough, he hasn't even pulled the cord on his life jacket. He's feeling very confident in the water.
Double points.
That is a fantastic effort from that man.
I think he's raised the bar there.
He absolutely has. That's the standard we want to see everybody else hitting.
So that was a bit of fun, but back to the serious business of winning leg 3.
So Mark, talk us through what we're going to expect to be seeing here for the next 24, 48 hours. These sailors leave the shore. We're going to be sailing away from Abu Dhabi into what?
So they are going to head up the coast here, and at some point this onshore sea breeze that is established virtually over the course of this the start here. We're just over an hour into this thing. The sea breeze is going to at some stage stop. It's almost a guarantee that it will stop. And you can get this wide shot here. Just imagine the breeze actually just slowly dropping away until they're in virtually drifting calm conditions. And then the next pressure, now we can see the next pressure will come in from back from the land. And now the teams have to line up. They have to sort of get close, because they want to be on the side the land that the breeze will come from, and that's probably the land coast. So they'll keep low to the land. And it's almost like a stockbroker wanting to know where the next stock advantage will come from. Is it the left of the shift or the right of the shift? It's the left of the stock, the right of the shot. So, and we're here on board here with Libby Greenhalgh, the navigator on board SCA, and she will already have a game plan. They would have talked the entire team through the leg and what they feel in their first leg.
Well, of course, a big part of this, as you say, is the next 24 or 48 hours. How is that weather going to unfold? And let's have a little bit of a look at it.
So now you can see here the coast here, up from Abu Dhabi, going past Dubai, and up to the top of the kink here, up to the Musandam, the Straits of Hormuz, and you've got an exclusion zone to keep the team safe away from the shipping lanes, up round the top and then round the corner into the Gulf of Oman. Now, I've got some inside knowledge from the navigators that the next pressure is going to come from the north coast, and they're going to stay up there. Any teams that go close to the bottom down Oman, they may make an early gain, but they will always have to get up to the top. Then out into the Indian Ocean, down the side of India. And the next big call is how close they clip Sri Lanka at the bottom there. As they turn around the corner there's some pretty big mountains in Sri Lanka, and as they head off to the Malacca Straits. And that Malacca Straits is another story altogether.
So still some big challenges for these navigators. And Knut, what are your thoughts? What are we going to see for the first 48 hours?
I spoke to, as I said, to race control and Gonzalo Infante, our race meteorologist, and he predicted that we were going to see some light air reaching all the way to the Straits of Hormuz, and then we're going to go into light air running. And so I think it's pretty light, pretty downwind in the beginning. I think the best way to know is to switch on our app, the Volvo Ocean Race app that you can download on Android or on for your iPhone, and then use that, because there you can watch the weather, and you can also have the tracker up and running, so you can follow the boats and see what happens. The only thing you can be absolutely 100% sure about when we are in light air conditions, it won't be as the forecast, right, Nico?
Exactly right. That's the only thing you can guarantee in the light air, that it won't be as you thought it was going to be.
The big surprise, Knut, could be that if it goes light enough, and one of these teams has the courage to go and put it on one of the shores, okay? Because you can get fairly close to even the exclusion up near Iran. But certainly maybe not tonight, but tomorrow afternoon, the guys that can get in there on the Omani shore may very well get a lot more breeze if they can get a mile or two from the shore, and that could really do a lot.
Exactly, and we know from the previous leg, when they got close to Oman, when they really got close to Oman, that's where you can find the nice night breeze at night. And that night breeze you can find at night, you only find it really close to land. And some of the boats were hugging the coast so close that the Omani Coast Guard came over and wondered, what are you guys doing in here? Because suddenly you had all these race boats hugging the beaches in Oman. So this big thing about being close to the beach at night, getting a little bit further offshore in the day breeze, that's the gig around the whole coast, all the way up to Dubai and then the Omani coast. And it's going to be tough for the sailors. Lack of sleep. There's some new sailors on board. Speaking about new sailors, we had a chat with Chris Nicholson here, me and Alan, about injuries. Like this race is getting tougher and tougher, and we are starting to see some injuries on the sailors already. We had Sophie on SCA, who had surgery to her back after leg one. We have Phil Harmer on Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, who had his hand injured. And as Bowie Becking said, we have only seen 2 pretty easy legs so far. What's your take on that, Nico? Is it getting that much harder?
Yeah, I think it is, and quite often, like with a new boat, it takes a little while for the injuries to pop up, whether it's a tendonitis, like an overuse injury, and for sure we'll see more of that as we get more breeze. But the thing is, like with people design, so there's a little bit less sleep, and and you may not be eating enough, and it only takes a little thing to add to the injuries. But in these hot legs, I'm sure you'll find that the guys have all had a lot of cracked feet, cracked hands. So there's a lot.
Well, unfortunately, we just lost Knut there and Chris Nicholson, but Mark, we've been talking a lot about this transition when we're going to see the sailors heading down below and getting into that watch system, and we rarely get a chance to see what the boat is like down below. So let's have a little bit of a look and a walk through of what it's like to be on board a Volvo Ocean 65.
Well, the first thing is you've got to remember that as we come down here, often the breeze is, we're going to fly inside now, and you've got to remember the action of the boat. It's going to be banging around and over on one side, so up to 30 degrees. That is the main companionway. This is back into the navigator and onboard reporter. There are the bunks, little cot bunks that they can actually change. And here is the galley, and into this bow section here with the heads, and a large area where they end up putting all the rubbish and trash. They don't throw anything over on these teams. Everything goes into the bow section in double bin bags, and nothing is thrown over the side at all.
And I understand that the toilet bowl, it's a solid carbon fibre and it's gimbaled, so it moves as the boat moves, but not to get too involved with it, but that's got to be a little bit of a challenge using that thing in a big sea.
Well, I can only leave that subject where it should stay there, as we're on board with Alva Medica here, and it's great to see the local fire service and the towering streams of water there as Abu Dhabi celebrate at the end of a fantastic stopover. It really has been an amazing time here. So many things that we have seen, from air shows to incredible concerts to all sorts of displays of local dhow sailing, and it really has showed off this port as an amazing holiday destination and an incredibly active place. And I'm sure these teams, having spent Christmas and New Year here, will be very sad to leave here, but exciting to go to another continent, another town, another city, and another great stopover in Sanya.
And it must be fantastic for the sailors as well, because of course now the nervous excitement does start to kick in. You're going to be leaving the safety of Abu Dhabi, you're going to be leaving the Straits of Hormuz and sailing out beyond into the Indian Ocean and more dangers. I mean, how does the course look beyond the first 48 hours?
So Chris Nicholson hit this. He said the question to Chris Nicholson was, who's going to win this? And the answer was the team that doesn't have an issue. And there are so many potential pitfalls up here. There are there's a lot of transitions to get through. There's a hell of a lot of shipping. And it's not a case of having an issue close with shipping. It's about avoiding and having to make avoiding directions that are going to cost you sea miles. And that Straits of Hormuz is one of the busiest times, and then down through the monsoon winds coming off the continent here, and then down round Sri Lanka, and then up into the Straits of Malacca. Now, the Straits of Malacca is an interesting place. It's not a lot of wind, apart from when you get these thunderstorms that you'll get a bit of local breeze. And then you come through this spot. You've got Singapore right in the middle of the screen there. And that tiny slither of water, the teams have got to get through there with hundreds and hundreds of boats sharing that transition, and then up into the South China Sea there, with lots of small islands, lots of fishing boats that hold great big drag nets with steel cables at night, often not lit, and again a lot of debris in the water. We will see trees, dead animals, tarpaulins, all sorts of things, junk in the water. And of course they sail fast through the night. The last thing we want to do is hit something like that. So it's going to be keeping it safe and just keeping the boats moving and avoiding all these many, many pitfalls. And I guarantee most of these teams will actually have to send swimmers in to get something off the keel or rudder or dagger boards at some point.
It's going to be a very, very interesting leg, and I was lucky enough to sit down with Will Oxley for a while when he sort of talked me through it, and he was very, very nervous about this small squeeze the fleet are going to take as they go through Singapore. And as I asked him, well, you go through the Straits of Hormuz, that's pretty tight. The Straits of Hormuz, 25 miles, but the Straits of Singapore, 5 nautical miles across, and with over 2,000 ships. It's going to be very, very difficult. Canute, we're just wondering, you're out in the water, we're about to go into the solid offshore part. How does it look?
Sorry, can you just ask again?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, we're about to hit that final transition to the offshore part. What's your thoughts about what we've seen today?
Well, I mean, I was just speaking to Chris Nicholson about that, you know, the transition from inshore to offshore. I mean, these guys are really going to be inshore all the way to Oman, aren't they? I mean, they're really not leaving the coast before they pass Oman.
I think they are going to be in that inshore mode. As much as you like to give the guys rest and everything, you'll see the boats beside this, almost like this competition, like who can push the hardest, and you can't let anyone get a break on you, not at this early stage.
So I mean, at least for another 2 to 3 days, these guys will be in full inshore mode now, racing very, very hard before they leave the coast and head towards India. I know that's the weather. I looked at the forecast and it showed some westerlies when they leave the Omani coast and they sort of head towards India, and that's going to make it fairly easy to get across. But it's dangerous to leave the coast too early, you know, at night if you have no wind, right? You can really get stuck, and that's not a pleasant thing.
Yeah, and the big problem in this light air is if you get stuck in a position of where there's no air, it takes so long to get out of that position to get to where the breeze is. It's not like when there's more breeze, you can always do your tack over and take a small loss. The losses in this light air can just be huge, and it can take days or even weeks to recover from those losses.
It will be interesting to see. Do you think we will have as many lead changes as we've had on the other legs? I mean, the first leg out of Alicante, the first week, we had 57 lead changes. You think that's going to happen again on this leg?
Well, I think the statistics are showing that that's going to happen, and that's usually what happens with one design racing. So, yet again, it just puts more pressure on the teams.
Right.
Well, thank you very much, Chris Nicholson and Knut. Now, we're about to say goodbye to the fleet here in Abu Dhabi. The focus of the race moves into the open ocean, and the exits through the Straits of Hormuz and into the Indian Ocean to head east. And for the race management back in Spain, the focus moves to the race headquarters there, where Jenny Tulloch is in mission control and ready for the leg ahead.
Since the fleet has started its journey from Abu Dhabi, everything is fully operational here in race control in the headquarters in Alicante, Spain. It's going to be a tricky path of more than 4,600 miles from Abu Dhabi to the leg 3 finish in Sanya. So here in race control, the duty officers are at it 24/7, monitoring the fleet and the weather, working directly with the race director to ensure the safety of the fleet. They've had to do everything from place exclusions for icebergs, pirates, and shipping traffic, and of course help the boats liaise with their shore teams and families ashore. The watch producers are also in here and at it 24/7, aligning directly with the onboard reporters to bring to us and then to you the best content from the boats. We'll be bringing you breaking news, insights from life on board, photos, videos, and text, and I'll be doing live calls as well. If you want to keep up with all of that, join us on the app tomorrow at 1700 UTC for the first inside track of leg 3.
Well, let's just go back to Knut one more time and just get any final thoughts from our commentary team on the water.
Well, thanks, Niall. Allen here, but great to hear Jenny's voice all the way there in Alicante. But, you know, I sort of talked about this a little bit in Cape Town. We have all this fun out here covering these great boats. They're brightly colored. People are doing backflips off the boat, and we can easily forget that bad things can happen out there. And I figured maybe, Chris, you'd like to give a send-off to the fleet and talk about what we should all be thinking about for those boys and girls out on the boats.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we've talked all day about how close and how the racing will be, but you know, when we touched on in regards to, you know, the Mica Straits, the amount of shipping, the light air zones, a lot of roundings, islands, etc. There's a lot of there's a lot of risk, but they're the best guys in the world. And you know, like for me personally, I wish them all the luck. Hope they have a safe trip, and it'll be good to see them again in Sanya.
We certainly know they feel the same way about you, and for me, of course, we want to see everyone healthy for the rest of this race and 7 boats finishing in Göteborg. And back to Knut for one last final thought.
Well, yes, for me, I just want everyone to obviously keep following the leg and keep following the race. If you haven't downloaded our app, we have done some upgrades to the app just 2 days ago to the Android and the iOS version. So get the Volvo Ocean Race app on your phones and the race tracker on your desktop, and follow us every hour going forward, because this is going to be an exciting leg, and I think it's going to be a super tight beginning. And if it's going to be anything there, Alan's got you got the app already. It's spinning on your phone. Come on, you need it. How can you live? How can you live without it, man? No, live with the app. Enjoy the race. See you soon.
Well, thanks very much, Knut and Alan and Chris. Of course, the coverage will continue online through the app. It's been a fantastic race here on the water. Mark, any final thoughts?
Well, just quickly, I think we're going to see a lot of lead changes, a lot of transitions, a lot of concertinaing of the fleet, and it is going to be really exciting in this slow and technical leg.
It's going to be a very, very challenging next 24 hours. And as we keep saying, it's going to be very interesting to watch these teams and see who breaks away from the shore, who stays close to the land. Now, if you want to keep up to date, there's the tracker online. Everything is available through the app. Of course, we're going to have the live arrivals on the website when the boats arrive in Sanya, finishing this leg. Thanks very much from me and Mark and all our commentary team on the water. It's been a great day here in Abu Dhabi. We will see you in China. Keep watching the race. Let's see how it unfolds.